Chapter 3. During the endless cedar dinner and the even more endless explanations from the Haggadah, Hannah frequently glanced out the window. A full moon was squeezed between two of the project apartments buildings. Her grandfather droned on and on about the plagues of the eggs and the edicts from Egypt. Maybe it was an interesting story if someone else told it, Hannah thought. But Grandpa Will had a voice that buzzed like the plague of locusts, and he made sour lessons at every pause. The cedar wasn't even in the right order, not like they taught in Sunday school. When Hannah tried to protest, she was shut down by Uncle Sam. "It's Will's way. Don't make trouble," he said. Hannah stared at the moon. Tomorrow they'd be going to Grandpa Dan's for the next cedar. At least there would be 3 cousins her own age, all boys, but that couldn't be helped. And they'd get to sit at the kitchen table away from the grown-ups, and Grandpa Will wouldn't be there shouting and making a scene, only Grandpa Dan. Sweet, gentle, silly Grandpa Dan, who told stories in between the readings and said things like, "How do I know? I was there." Beside her, Aaron was moving restlessly, getting ready to ask the second questions. With the yarmulke covering his fair hair, he looked like a miniature Grandpa Will. Hannah almost laughed aloud, remembering what Rosemary had asked her at the first and only holiday visit. "Why do you wear those beanies?" Aaron's hands shook the page in the Haggadah, flipped over by itself. Hannah reached out and smoothed it back for him, and he smiled up at her gratefully. He had the greatest smile, Hannah thought. He won't need braces. "Stop worrying," she mouthed to him. At her urging, he plunged into the second question, chanting the Hebrew perfectly because he'd memorized it. But when he looked down on the book to read the English translation, he stumbled over the word herb, pronouncing the H. Uncle Sam snorted, and Aaron stopped, mortified. He looked around the table. Everyone was smiling at him. It was clear that he'd made some silly mistake, but he didn't know what it was, and he'd done. He turned helplessly to Hannah. "Herb," she corrected with a whisper. "Don't pronounce the H." He nodded gratefully and stared at the English again, finishing too loudly and in a rush, a sure sign he was unhappy. And all the other nights we eat vegetables and herbs of all kinds. Why on this night do we eat bitter herbs especially? Why indeed, Hannah wondered, since they're so disgusting. Rosemary gets to eat jelly beans and I get to eat horseradish. It isn't fair. She suddenly realized that she'd spoke the last words out loud and everyone had heard. Embarrassed, she stared down at her hands, but her anger at the injustice continued. "Of course it isn't fair," whispered Aunt Ava to her. "But what has fair to do with it?" She smiled, and to break the tension, started singing Danu in her strong musical voice. The rousing, repetitive song carried them all along, even Hannah's mother, who was tone deaf. "Dia, dia, enu, dia, dia, enu, dia, enu, dia, enu." Hannah knew it meant it would have been good enough, but she suddenly felt that nothing was enough except to get out of that room and that cedar in which nothing fair or fun was happening. And she remembered the wine. That, at least, was new. When the cedar began, she would get another glass of watered wine. For the first time, she was allowed to drink along with the grown-ups. "Let Hannah Lella join in with the toast for real," Grandpa Will had said before the cedar had begun. "Now, Poppy," Hannah's mother protested. "She's only 12. 13, Hannah said. Ava had patted her hand. "And when my sister Ava was 13, what she would have given for a little glass of watered wine." Grandpa Will had begun, but the same kind of argument he used for everything. He never had to finish the sentence, for no one could withstand the promise of guilt. "All right, Poppy." Grandma Will had smiled, turning to Ava. "See, they'll keep her a baby forever." Babies, like Aaron, had to make do with grape juice. Hannah had been grateful for her grandfather for that. She had discovered with the very first toast that she liked the sweet, coiling taste of the wine, even though it made her head buzz. "Hannah," Aaron tugged on her sleeve, and his eyes were full of mischief. "It's time." "Time?" For a moment she thought he meant time for the next toast, and then she realized what the time to steal the mouth off, wrapped in blue embroidered cloth. Looking around the table, she saw that adults were all suddenly very busy talking to one another. She remembered when, as the only child, she'd been the one to take the cloth. She'd thought herself terribly clever when she found it under Grandpa Will's chair. Of course, now she knew that he always hid it there for her easy discovery. She smiled at Aaron, suddenly feeling very adult. You go look for it. I'll keep watch here. Okay, he slipped from his chair and crawled around to the head of the table. Then he leapt to his feet, holding the blue cloth and its crumbling contents high over his head. I found it, Poppy. Now I get to hide it. He ran from the room, but no one leaped up to follow. He's going to hide it in the bathroom, Hannah said, to no one in particular. He always does. Hush, Hannah, don't spoil things, Aunt Rosa said. You always hid that Afghan under Grandma Belle's pillow, said Aunt Ava. You knew? Uncle Sam coughed. You left enough crumbs. Knowing and not knowing, her mother said and sighed. It's all part of the game, and the game is to uncover the hidden order of the universe. Cedar means order. I read that in a book. What hidden order? Grandpa Will said. Do you think there was an order back in the camps? Do you think... Ava interrupted smoothly. Lily, you are much too serious about things. Let the children play. They are children for such a short time. And it's not as if we keep kosher or do things as a rabbi would. We do it for the children. Isn't that right, Bill? Grandma Bell nodded. So they can have fun and remember their history. Brushing away the wisp of white hair from her broad forehead, Aunt Ava rose. And here we come, Aaron, ready or not. Signaling for the others to follow her, she left the dining room. The men stayed at the table talking, but Aunt Ava and Aunt Rose went to the bedroom in a noisy search. Hannah's mother was almost as loud looking for the kitchen as they spent minutes calling out to each other about how difficult Aaron was to find this year, until Grandpa Will put his fingers to his mouth and let out a piercing whistle that brought them all back. And I had been waiting at the bathroom door as if on guard. At the whistle, the door opened and Aaron peeked out. Hannah, I'm in here, he whispered. Big surprise, Hannah said, slipping into the room. Look where I hid the Afghan. He took the blue cloth out of the dirty clothes basket. That's disgusting, Aaron. Hiding it in someone's laundry? They'll never looked in here, Hannah. I flushed the toilet and pretended to be going. And no one came in, he grinned. You're so smart, Ron. Hannah had to laugh at his earniness. What are you going to ask Poppy for? A baseball glove. She knew how much he wanted one. He'd been saving his chunk of money and doing extra choice. Good choice, he said. No matter what Poppy offers you to buy back the affluent, you hold out for that glove. She looked at herself in the bathroom mirror, wondering when the braces would come off. This summer, if she was lucky. I got her Barbie doll dress collection once. She didn't admit that she regretted it right after. When she turned to say something else, Aaron was already gone. The rest of the Passover meal was tempting, but Hannah had eaten so much at Rosemary she only picked at her food. Besides, her head was beginning to throb. Uncle Sam poured another quarter glass of wine into her glass, then filled the rest of the way with water for the next blessing. Suddenly, she was sure she didn't want it anymore. My head feels funny, she said to her mother. I told you she was too young for wine, her mother said with a sigh, even watered wine. Uncle Sam handed around a large cut crystal goblet, Elijah's cup, and everyone poured a little bit of their wine from their own glasses into it. When it was Hannah's turn, she emptied her entire glass. Elijah can have it all, she said grandly. Grandpa Will smiled down the long table at her. What a good girl for being so unselfish. You can open the door for the prophet and welcome him in. I wanted to do that, Aaron called out. That's the most fun. Hannah will do it, Aaron, Grandpa Will said, because she was so generous with her gift. He can have my whole cup, too, Aaron said. A sacrifice unasked is so much greater, Grandpa Will said flatly. Come, Hannah. Hannah said reluctantly. She felt like a fraud. She hadn't given the wine out of generosity, but only because she didn't want it. It was no sacrifice. Remember, Hannah, we opened the door to remember ourselves of the time Jews were forced to keep their doors open to show the Christians we were not practicing blood rituals. Ha! His last syllable was a noisy punctuation, as if we were the bloody ones. Aunt Ava leaned and laid her hand quietly on his. It was enough to calm him. He smiled at Hannah and opened the door to Elijah, child, and invite him in with an open heart. Slowly, Hannah moved toward the front door, feeling incredibly dumb. She certainly didn't believe that the prophet Elijah would come through the apartment door any more than she believed Darth Vader or Robin Hood or the Easter Bunny would. No one believed those superstitions anymore. No one except babies, like Aaron. Glancing over Over her shoulder, Hannah saw they were all watching her intently, and bounced up and down in his chair. "Open it, Hannah," he called out loudly. "Open for Elijah." "Baby stories," she thought angrily, unlatching the double bolt, flinging the door wide open. She whispered, "Ready or not, here I come." Outside, where there should have been a long, windowless hall with dark green numbered doors leading into other apartments, there was a greening field and a lowering sky. The moon hung ripely between two heavy gray clouds. A bird pelted the air with a strange lifting song, and across the field, stepping into the furrows, marched a shadowy figure. He had a shapeless cap on his head, a hoe over his shoulder, and he was singing. "Who asked you to be buried alive? You know that no one forced you. You took this madness on yourself."